No upgrades, my alcohol experience is low wages, not actually depending on real life. The advantage. The advantage is factor stagnation, financialization, exceptional volatility, and now we're only a target reversal way stagnation solves on our existing private investment in the US versus directly cost of speculation wages in the US continue to decline economic findings show that lower return wages lead to lower GDP advantage wages, investors love the fall demand, lack of recovery wage, strong confidence advantage, discouraging investing to the direct models based on shaking out the quality stagnation to the root of the recession, low activity, low good, results in lower wages, lead to lower demand, and the investment finance industry creating increasing capital, pressure on volatile demand, stagnant productivity, sector stagnation is distributed solely to waste stagnation, doctors array, 22 sector stagnation in the US is the problem demand, slow growth demand, slow investment causing include the urbanization, waste stagnation, inequality, and moral quality, just spending among the participating race and slow growth community, the insufficient and false demographic, innovation rates, interest rate rollouts, slow recovery, it's just like wages, negative interest rates will be deployed as well as inevitable. The 16 sector stagnation, the 5 traditional revenues and high color rates, resources to investment continue to be rate, investment on the track, the firm will go closing your negative rates, for financial role gets majority for causing a business to customers, we withdraw neutralizing spending, forcing for invest, would be actual like having new sides, distributing bus, recessions will come in inevitable, stagnation causes monetary policy fail, monetary benefits, 22 sector stagnation behind the cost of public safety and recession, get some stagnation restoring the investment, any number of restoring the reverse more than the pandemic of employees, high inflation, low temperature, no general monetary policy, and inflation is highly higher interest comes, outweighs inflation, this calibration is a byproduct of sector stagnation, not the other way around, but short, 23 economists are construction, low demand, for investment, then per offices are growing, real estate declines, slower the growth, something that introduces around highly low variable, more the urbanization, how much inflation is highly structural factor that no inflation is under reverse, one central base, one daily inflation, interest rates will be low, real interest or low, can look at the factors that one on the chart, that we investment, there's no reason to discuss from one higher rates, and it concludes this higher time to think about policy, once inflation is one, sector stagnation, causation, off-number, 21 years prior to the sector stagnation, increasing at low localization, with clarity, options, and political rights, collaboration, talking, economic research, replying, ultra institution, become the value of world one, with returns to economic destruction, reducing the return to World War III, college free, yes, Taiwan, with clarity, guys, application, college brand award, reading institutions, information, public, farm science, says, history, galaxies, matrices, advertising, American policy, every public, Russia, United reader, press, engagement, and access, use of control, in order to trace posture, visions, aggression, that means global war, that will give 23 sheep of the good choice, and then alliance with no limit, having 0.1, and has offered consider prosperity, investing in every government from the moment across the Russia, right? Making him peace, right? Russia, allowing to lost no, repeating measure, and all Russia, right? And going here, military cost alongside, and flying out, or storing, conflict, and watch it, the plane out avoids all negative facts, or reversing, like, 16 national recovery, which are, recovery, wages, wages, recovery, offsetting, negative questions, for running, the terminals, for running, that's what these distribution wage profits is achieved in taxing minimized, essentially guys are shooting minimum wage, addressing the budget, reducing benefits, increasing income, building more percent, increasing income, increase the reform of the wage must be living wage, extending pays, unlimited carbon rewards, reporting, curtail managerial compensation, the other wage, turn over productivity, and reduce absenteeism. More for it all. 22 living wage insurance stable to for low wage for reducing recruiting and training costs, reduction for recording 1% for small firms as well. Skills investors for more skilled workers, running more office than which promote workforce below 50s and higher quality workers using 2 talent, except like 1.80%. You can ask sometimes if you more than required value every half the one see the one see these sacrifices fine, so only one is keep the design. This understands investment is better to invest in labor rather than intangibles not bolster profit. Jackson, where it is relative analysis and background and and close the root of the section of the nation, our question wage and not real wage is low for the long wage questions on the distributional lays. Government profit shares that distributed 12% take care of the real wage with and productivity reverse this investment is loading cheaper. Inputs are labor costing capital investing and productivity monetary. And we will 20 that is stocking wage automation building around that. Waste not using the wage rather than have conditional wage and productivity for some people has labor force for the innovate second. And so much more efficient labor organization that the means of different for situation wage reduce permanent starts market represents series and sourcing has by eating. Inflation studies prove that the market is ever competitive existence and all CDs that business can whether a wage increase limit 23 economics and wage increase and also with the classy avoid or high wage increase and the employment increase high with it comes in the Nazi or enterprise that participant for the one that also any higher auditing or university distribution to the or not higher the earning money certainly translates to higher demand which is that adds that the plan resulting massive health require that works receive the living wage will depend on actually living wage factor MIT contributions specific health food care health transportation other needs the next advantage is living wage directly accelerates the achievement also the SDGs you have to look like a big living wage accelerate SDGs directly can several goals which one of those one work additional work enable 1 over 500 quality 80 work 10 reducing quality 2 0 longer 3 go forward new water sanitation affordable energy cut the car there you go support the critical growing but also now give the 20 SDG factors as very universal addressing the quality trust in the local need for new leadership and everything for American government as the SDGs dealer by allowing industry homes to the must be announced by SDGs laws of our past indicators 16 during the fire 20 the SDGs past thermal compliance about the time energy ecosystem try to affect the whole global system risk include after the cyber and water content water price of these exceed capacity to reduce accident performance that will last pressure level points of point outcomes for the part in the framing that there is business with heating actions the trade is access for sound wave behavior psychology needs this not be underestimated for more and also looking workplace that's all about winning quality accessory access numbers to fill the active not to be fusion nothing practice under the access for settings and the which is something states that will charge affirmation. So 16 affirmation for state, if there has the most affirmation of activities and power of self under the state affirmation not often also in the state power. Control the question that we can repeat example of every single under going into the state of the state self the question of whether we engage or how to talk for practices for achieving solutions, innovative blueprint for material change. Those on I think when you progress from power, take from here for the role of state return from the state return from the last week, with the right pretty pure capacity to serve allowing lots of math self for achieving state return to your work and their engagement with the leading cells already. One of your check, nothing to be shot the bear, the one actually too short to make it for the time to know. Oh, yes, you can do a speed report every time to be interested in that. To work on that, or okay, you can have your first one for the one time means a bigger trail. Don't need your arms to wait to be represented. And try to make sure 6 minutes to play an hour, which kills more than person once you stay react to the burn and no option, you go first with logical discourses. And then you ourselves no chance to overly ride. As actually, you go back to SDGs. And the last part after matching over points of point outcomes, able to also your consequences, seasonal acting, and other consequences of urbanization.
Okay, cool. For the context,
yeah.
You live 3 upload.
Yeah.
Any inventory reasons to affirm?
No.
Wait, like eval after the money C question mark.
That's not an independent reason to affirm.
Is there anything that you guys sent off doc?
Huh?
Anything I sent off doc?
Eval?
Eval was off doc?
Yeah.
Wait, what is the eval warrant written in Jackson 20?
Sorry?
Never mind, that's fine. Davidson evidence, negative interest rates will be deployed. Can you explain to me basic economic theory for how interest rates can go negative?
What do you mean? Like the federal government over
the Federal Reserve will set a negative interest rate?
Yes, it's happening in countries like Japan.
Wait, what does that entail for the Federal Reserve?
What do you mean? What does that entail for the
What does that entail for the Federal Reserve? What is the interaction between the Federal Reserve and banks?
Yeah, sure. The Dependence on cards says banks would charge you for depositing funds. Businesses and consumer might withdraw their cash.
Doesn't that cause an interest rate if banks are charging people for depositing funds? I'm confused. Or like
no,
banks will take money.
Interest rate is whenever you are when I loan money, then I have to pay more back. A negative interest rate is that when I deposit money, the banks are charged.
Wait, like why does the U.S. Federal Reserve specifically have incentives to force negative interest rates in a time where they're trying to increase employment?
Sorry?
The Federal Reserve has just
sure.
a rate cut. Why does it mean they're going to go negative to incentivize employment?
Well, the argument is that secular stagnation over a given period, secular stagnation is something that is super hard because inflation, because stagnation occurs, which is that federal monetary policy fails. The evidence says that the full employment real interest rate would be extremely low in order to resolve.
What's the employment rate right now?
What's
the employment rate right now?
I assume the full employment rate.
We have the strongest job report since this year.
Right.
Why does it mean that?
Right. Maybe the economy is high right now, but secular stagnation is a question of the entire economy. So secular stagnation it is a theory about how our economy works and why wage suppression is vested. Why the lack of wages, is causes secular stagnation. The business cycle obviously still has increases and decreases. We haven't asserted a claim obviously that's during some point.
That's fine. I guess your Oppenheimer evidence, why does stagnation cause a decline in U.S. power?
Cause a decline in U.S. power?
I guess why is U.S. power not already declined?
What do you mean? Why hasn't secular stagnation
Your internal link is U.S. power has declined relative to other states. What about the affirmative is unique that causes a great synchrony?
Sorry?
What about the affirmative is unique that causes a
we made a claim that secular stagnation, the second line says secular stagnation increases the likelihood that illiberal globalization will
Your evidence says that U.S. power has already declined relative to other states, especially China. Where is your impact scenario for war?
Yeah, sure. After a given period where the Federal Reserve has to go through negative interest rates, after a period of secular stagnation where there's a lack of demand, the United States power is going to decrease to a point
you already said U.S. power has declined. Where is the uniqueness for your impact?
Obviously, okay, it's a question of scope of link. Obviously, the card is the same. Yes, the magnitude of the link is distinct. I don't know what to tell you.
I'll take some credit. Yeah.
But you better return that. How many sheets do you need?
15 seconds. 4.
Sorry, how much was it?
15 seconds used. 3, 4, 5 left.
What's the order in case?
Order on case is managed to
So 2-1.
Review is the first off. If you want to float there, it's just like specs on top.
Wait, so underview is the first off?
Yeah. You can float there.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm just gonna go there.
Okay. Not really. Okay. Are you good?
Looking back from what I see, a reasonable point of view makes it impossible to have clash and fairness. First, evaluating our theory through the reasonability right line of sufficient defense into their interpret to clarify the right line is if the education loss from avoiding substance outweighs the marginal fairness loss. A, something straight out is better to negate. To debate and extract that are mostly fair than always debate the procedural issue of theory is parameter. And we got competing interests and minimizes infinite outplaying with least substance track and destroys development of portable skills. B, race to the top, competing interest cause race to the top, and will never debate substances. There's always marginally better norm because the app is instructional set and review false shells that match up to the human arm. That's unfair because the app can immediately when silly shells are satisfied starting off the human arm. 2, app is one air shell, 8 norming multiple shells create no risk to the spread of the human arm. Assessing each of them impossible. If 4 minutes on a privileged shell, by satisfaction win arm. B, reinforcing those are bad. Norm B, stressing multiple shells makes the human arm impossible. Starting out 2 in one layer, like 2 in always uncover something and I can win. Next off. Canada and the United States also require that workers are paid enough to cover all costs of living unrelated to cable broadband internet. It competes first. Living wage must include broadband and beaver in Beaver 24. Living wage most well-known estimates of broadband internet provides basic needs budgets, but gold standard use in living wage projects independently cost by their own solvency evidence that says it includes broadband. 2 misrepresents broadband are specific scenarios of 5G and are the same for evidence of the greater living wage calculators. The description of each element of living wage class higher. 22. Living wage broadband types of connections, cable, fiber, ADA, SL, and satellite, and 5G is out competing broadband in households now, and we'll get to people who don't have access. They compete and trade off 5G is not better, cost reliable, and speed. Round 23. 5G is taking on broadband, 67% subscribe more decided by the Wi-Fi coverage and consumers don't have access, no forecast more people subscribe is available, edges out ahead in pricing, often straightforward trusted mobile brands that are rapidly incorporating over consumers drive internet prices down quality up, delivering the most reliable internet service, and encouraging broadband causes extra fees, price hikes, stated caps and term contracts, exactly calculable fees take away from the rest of the wage. In first case, 5G sets the standard for internet. Also, 24. Cable companies overrun and influence able to get away with charging extra fees, installation, $10 to $15 rental fee, that monthly data cap, early termination, is leading promotional prices, go the first one lower than normal that kicks in and 12 months around 5G does away with this because that's the standard for clarity of there's anything in the world of the internet and key to global sustainability, internet access, health, poverty, rights, uses, education, health disparities, and ESEC to 17. The UN Global Goals for Sustainable Development SDGs emphasize access to technology, underpins eradication of poverty, only stable, secure, and open access to the internet will ensure success on behalf of workers, population levels in the internet, free expression, political participation, access to information, use by access, but also impact economic development, and the digital economy can allow people out of poverty, they lack equal access to internet services, access to information, such as makes it difficult for people to enjoy robust education, and internet conservation, education, economic and health outcomes, and smart cities are reliant upon 5G connectivity shops in one. Smart city shopping and on the increased use of 5G office spaces for the next generation, appropriate for the smart cities, the smart solutions that city management, enormous computing capacity, extensive connectivity, improve energy waste, water resources, traffic flow, parking, internet reduce emissions, and climate change, and unsustainable cities, cause extinction, and critical 16. Cities will be home to 8 billion, and cities will consume 75 billion tons of resources, and existence depends on the preservation of balance between resource and capacity growth, and will generate phenomenal waste, global sustainable water loss in cities, cities at risk of resource crises, targets for WMD, human groups for pandemic diseases, and hatcheries for AI in cities, the future of civilization, and cities where poorly conceived solutions and the planet trouble is the consequence of population outwarding natural capacity, flooding, and fire, urban health problems, and exacerbating environmental and different effects of diseases are warning for city collapses. This is your explicit line, this counterclaim is conditional. Next off. A 25% rate cut is priced in employers 10-11. Quarter point US interest rate cuts appeared in tax producer prices were flat and inflation continues on track 70%. Fed will leave its target bulk of estimated quarter point reductions of 2.5% stronger job growth reported, and the average rate cuts is perception. Their Davidson evidence is wrong. Interest rates cannot, by definition, go negative for employment. The Fed's dual mandate means Powell's incentive has to make a soft landing, or else the bank's collapse. This was priced into the market. Collapse is inevitable if the Fed isn't inevitable if the Fed makes a soft landing. Summer 18. $50 an average, 4 million people attract 10 million existing under wage increase spending by 1 billion current total private sector costs rise by $240 million in the Fed saw budget expand heavily with more government pressure on to raise interest rates significantly, and rate disconnect collapses foreign central banks hand in 1918. Federal Reserve rate cuts on the yield curve for overseas central banks, Eurozone, the UK, and Canada already started. India have held back over rates ahead of the Fed, weakens international currencies. Central banks have yet to lower costs in Asia. They're not set to cut investors expect the Fed to cut quickly. These are the deadlines the letter of the reduction in uncertainty, global markets, and increase in those developing countries. The ECB and Bank of England have remained cautious, whereas personnel wage increases in labor markets and Fed rates are unique to this economy is categorically distinct from 08 and 916. Powell interest rates won't just be the American economy, but the US and the analysts soft landing will have implications. China's often a little bit of a significant leader. The Europeans as also people just 0.6% of the US recession, though the growth rate is likely serious. The Fed using cycle offers relief for economies, exchange rate, Russia has reversed China's real access to support engaging market currencies offers space to central banks rate cuts are starting around the world. Economic plans for wars sooner and Popo 19. As the rise of financial crises, there's economic concerns about large scale military conflict, economic crisis, financial control, World War, 08, military governance, cost systemic collapse, liquidity, not allocated, another economic crisis was severe as the economy is less responsible, monetary interventions. Likely unconventional monetary policies competed to really drive the economy, see the fourth off case. First time should be US leadership response to international revenues and only domestic shareholders 17. Immeasurable what it calls spillover effects and investigating spillover lessons in the US and particularly low spot major social challenges, high racial violence, gun violence, and high prison populations for value for gender and income inequality, economy, unsustainable consumption, production, peace, and security, high-income countries often the worst spillover effects, and SDGs still biobees, so Conan 20. SDGs start to break biodiversity, environmental SDGs, little correlation with biodiversity solutions for further environmental restoration, only 7% were positive, 14% have a negative relationship, biodiversity loss caused extinction, towards 16. The biodiversity loss is a contributing factor behind climate change and possible relationships, water direction on the west, available evidence that people describe from their alcohols, biodiversity loss, use centuries, and gaining 6 mass extinction on the way of consequences, including extending beyond the opportunities to rise and 5 times the able to the ecosystem burning overall. Erosion which has been reaching taking more planetary scale transition to precipitate global ecosystem across it, when developing widespread social and economic instability, loss of human life form, improving expected consequences of climate change, including destructive biodiversity loss, and multipliers, aspect complex, and heterodiversity loss, consequences of extinction threat. And there's one. They don't have uniqueness for Oppenheimer process was embarrassing. The U.S. power has already declined in relation to China, wage hikes, house wage price spiral. Robert 23, hiking minimum wage fosters wage price spiral. 2, applicants for user jobs, same pay or demand raise, now demand want to raise, so forth. The number of workers doing small world effect is substantially accelerating, which helps on consumers and inflation, increasing the movement of higher income, household reductions, employment, contribute further higher prices, quickly resales, which go fulfilling automation, offering the jobs, and the economy many indicators and trend business CEOs like 10-9 all sounds when expanding the U.S. economy, 254,000 jobs, unemployment dropped, GDP grew 3% to be EA, revising the previous issue data, S&P hitting highs and improved second quarter GDP, the increase in consumer spending, cut the card there, second year unemployment is not inevitable, GDP growth proves Atkinson, and 10-8, U.S. unemployment rate has increased gradually, forecasters are currently becoming moderate, modest increase in unemployment, no recession, GDP growth remains solid, household wealth is increasing, middle fundamentally different about the labor market, the chart shows that the recession had 1 percentage, unemployment comes out of slower growth, warning signs, the recession doesn't slow, is expected to slow to 1%, the forecast is rate 2% GDP growth, and skip that as well. Ray and Dantes are wrong period 2007 growth is historically anomalous. Board side 23. Ray and Dantes considers significant stagnation triggered by the Great Recession. Current performance should not be thought of as worse than golden age of exceptional period. Current dynamics look against economic stagnation, limited scope to not extended analysis for economic stars and inconsistencies. All causes no jobs available. Ray and Dantes 22. Insert being stagflation is wrong. Aggarwal and 23. Goes in non-experience in capital, but no increase in capital operating ratio remains constant 6%. Saving rate and other shift in capital towards assets with higher depreciation charging sales are the safest. Corporate profits and plan return to sector stagnation data takes otherwise would GDP advancing.
You sound right. Yeah, I just put spaces for the card that didn't use to do that. And I assume you voted those. Right? I'm gonna assume that you vote which cards I read, but I just put spaces. So you can see that. Good for constant.
I need that one.
Yeah.
Wait, sorry, you said spaces?
Yeah. If you're in draft mode, some of the charts.
Like this?
Yeah, like if I hit enter, which I have elsewhere.
Okay. Anything accepted?
Like, yeah.
Like what?
So I sent the answer to Summers, or the Dixon, answer to Eagle after the 1AC, and answers to, yeah.
Okay, that's it.
No text.
The K was right, yeah.
Yeah.
Rate cuts perception. Like, what do you like? Why is perception like right? I guess like why wouldn't like the Fed understand that the reason why inflation is high is because of a living wage?
What do you mean? The reason is that the Federal Reserve looks at, so the Federal Reserve has a dual mandate between both jobs and employment and inflation, which means they have to cover both, but they have to pull one lever. So if they see that employment is on the up right now, they're going to pull the lever towards inflation and vice versa. Our argument is that when they see that jobs are going to be suddenly flooding in with large and mass amounts of wages, they're now worried about inflation, which means they overcorrect back towards reducing jobs and solving inflation instead. That overcorrection is bad because it happens way too soon. It's a perception link, and that causes a disconnect between other banks. Do you want me to keep going, Malaysia?
Actually, no, that's fine. The case, I guess the Ray and Dantes be highlighting. Actually, that's fine. Stagflation, the outer box evidence. Can you explain?
Yeah, stagflation is an economic theory. It's just not true. The U.S. has not experienced these like increases in capital output ratios, which is what stagflation assumes will happen later. Capital output ratios has remained constant at 6%, which means our output as a GDP is still going on. The internal link to your stagflation argument is that stagflation is inevitably going to call loss in GDP output.
The Ray and Dantes card, is this inserted or read?
Inserted.
Okay, cool.
We inserted.
Cool. A wage price inflation spiral, can you explain what that is?
A wage price inflation spiral? Sure, it's pretty unique to this topic specifically because the living wage is premised on the cost of living. This means that when you have massive inflationary spirals, i.e. you give a bunch of money to consumers, consumers now spend them. When they spend them, stores both have to pay employees more and they see that there's higher demand, which means they get access to raising prices. Both of those things occurring at the same time means stores raise prices, which now means workers have less money. But remember that a living wage is indexed to a cost of living. And so when prices go up in stores, the cost of living goes up, which means workers get paid more, which means prices in stores now have to increase again, and it forms this cycle in which it continually goes on and increases.
The other evidence, I guess, when are they gonna cut rates? When?
Sorry, which one? Waiters?
The uniquest plan.
The argument, so the way the Federal Reserve works is that every single month they have a meeting in the FOMC, and then they decide on how much rate cuts are going to be. They have priced in a 25% rate cut for the next month, but it doesn't mean that it's set in. What this means is markets and betting markets, investors, etc., are predicting that the Federal Reserve is going to cut by 25%, but if the Federal Reserve does not choose to do so as a result of the plan, it forms a massive disconnect between investors and the Federal Reserve.
Okay, cool. Sorry about that. That was prep, 40 seconds statement. Okay, order's gonna be 5 UOs, I think, and then 5 UOs counter plan, and then pace.
Yeah, I smell this.
Yeah.
Yeah. I really like. I saw the Wednesday. The word restart popped in my head. Is it 5 new off?
Yep.
Oh, perfect. Where?
Just like the start of the 1AC. The underview's gonna be the start of the 1AR.
When you say it's only on time, but in the case which time?
I think you only read one. Okay.
The 5 new off kind of time base.
Sorry? The first off? Yes.
Is that on the
That's the first part of the speech.
Okay, so okay, the first one is the off, is the first part of the speech, and then it's 5 new off.
Yeah.
So please sign this. Or please tell me when you're switching to close.
Okay. Oh, do you need me to like give you some time to switch it between every single one?
Not a crazy amount, but just like at least like a second.
Okay. Anyone not good?
I need one sec. You said you're starting off with the theory show?
The 1AC, the first argument of the 1AC. Yeah, I said it.
Oh, there's an off?
Yeah.
Oh. Okay, I'm
Okay.
got it.
Okay. Sorry, give me 1 second. 1 or 3, anything else besides the new shop there, competing interpretation at the highest level, one street from for the time travel over US 6 minutes to armies here, group from time. Every time I see that they do not get to North Theory because it's 6 not the landline. The 1 foot is between the local, those things are qualified, which forces judgment, mentioned independently, speeds at the best form of support, and the middle theory, BC takes asking ways that are normal, which is proven with things in disclosure, the 8.0 applies to things like cases, all theory is now almost seniors, underdetermined, and also the best forms of key, there's a trade off for skills, exists with theory to be as well, the viewpoint, no race to the top, in the definitely best, marching never norms, marching never norms, are good because it means that the best norms, types of the 2 norms, the answering types of the 2 norms, fair and have good norms, that's worth it, independently, no, that's the whole point of the 1 year, is the types of the 2 norms, the 2 point, all more knows facts, that's not a bad order, that's the and operating the 2 norms, you just read 1, 2, 3, and do English, the answer, the viewpoint, trust you know, it doesn't want to show, when it's show, also means the 1 year possible, you just put on there, all there, just be more strategic, independent, because you have to figure out ways, because 1 4 or 1 7, independently procedural fairness, ways of custom for everything, you can see that the basic pattern activity with each time we send testing, fairness, and evaluated, independence, and now the for shells first off, and then counts on those very industries, fairness, trusting, community, once you, and just makes it possible, are also for and play race off, and possibly are off, it's all the content, disposal of all your offices, where you should be sure, that's all, interpretation, actually, just picks are a better, this field, carrying the first example, which is class from class, and just makes it possible to actually every single small part of the first example, all your offices, it's a part of still reach on the plan, it's on this article, next off, interpretation, debaters must all live foundations, they settle, they only set
specified condo in the 1C, which is definitely something which is definitely not accounted for. Shot in the standard strategy is actually process centers related to actually answer questions, which are 3 minutes to and finally it incentivizes the debater's line English, just asking the reply, text off, interpretation, debaters must read everything out loud. They have inserted the all paragraphs as if they just would answer a bunch of random things, which is a possible answer, and proceed to response to. It also incentivizes the audio operator, which is activated as dishonest force calling text off. Interpretation, debaters must specify delineating text in the 1C, whether there's operators or not technical operators or anything using the formally gave violation needed. Nor anything operators being the educated value of the debater, certain classrooms that overseas competitive extended, gives to debaters for learning disabilities, specs, all of those debaters could test arguments, and disincentivizes all for G-class learning outweighs the scope of debates, improving outweighs the debates we're going to get there, and treating these good looks for the critical thinking that's unique to LD. Now they kind of confirm the content, now we're serving the affirmative, because that there's no different thing because issues used, which the affirmative is not the content, which is only to the decide. To the next, now case page, the rules of answer from whether resolution is true or false statement is most multiple, since she doesn't go for the third, most 3 points the better planner, wins by dictionary to find the negates and not true, affirmative true, which he said, is conditioned and interstitial, which are the period on inclusion, they assume all things, both which are the correct versions of those of the pictures in here, and finally, no need to remember institution, they said, also especially since 2 out of 3 aspects are already read, and finally, presume after so much resolved into the time in the firm also bias 1 meters, outweighs all 21, over 243 determines the negative 50% p-value, less than 10 to the negative 18 power, and also includes 18 powers, accounting for advantage, making it so easier, outweighs the account for all factors, which are we trust theories over analytics, and finally, the negative reactive theory, learn the 1C for the round expect that this is non-circle class, and for the round owner, also means no funeral rating mixes circular, so the use of the class in the door, and outweigh any terms having theoretical words outweigh, is more connected to the dependent structure of LB and don't verify topic. The author of the truth causing versus the rating paradox. Reflecting big one, one, someone must adjust, they must not go, they must go after, so someone's not a judge, they must not go after, one is not a judge, and must not go after, and this supports B2 since they're not a judge, and therefore must not go after, B2 and P1 are also equivalent, the judge must go after, to the rules of logic, the only time statements and analysis, the antecedent issue, the consequence, false set, official assertions, you can see it, false, false, or any other combination of official issue, visual exclusion, which one, any agreement, all of them together, or even if there's issues, the first one is false, the second true, empirical world proves the correct system logic, and these contradictions do not indicate, Robert 22, logic doesn't appropriate any consensus, finding how August, you guys can do so much contradiction, correct laws of paradox, both through theoretical, virtual, virtuous, this, and the natural world, and inconsistent, consistent, no virtual world, is possible logic, makes you make the answer to yes or no, true, isn't that, all statements are true, is true, possibilism, debate, no way there's a world in which true is true, the W not identical with the actual world, the truth is true, possibilism, the outright proposition is possible, one theory, economics, we should all control, but also which I think goes to be true for necessary, here, one of the users, for sure, they have to use logical advantage, for sure, that's something else, and then you can distinct that, that's true, one of them, you're not, you cannot stop it, and it's not true.
Okay. 345, your offense is condo, picks, lying, must not insert text, speculating the text, truth testing, tricks. The tricks are.
Wait, sorry, repeat that? Wait, I think you messed up on one of the theory shows.
Can you name your theory tests?
Okay. So condo, picks, lying, reading everything out loud, spec off yours.
Or expect off your release?
Yeah.
Or yeah, to expect when you get off your release. And then the rest of your arguments you can win on are condo logic, contradictions make it impossible to evaluate, and then trivialism.
The principle of explosion, the Lars paradox, paraconsistent logic.
What's the third one?
Sorry?
Total explosion and Liar paradox. What else?
Paraconsistent logic.
What is that?
Basically, there are logical contradictions within the world, but systems are inherently inconsistent. So, for example, people know that eating meat is bad because these animals place so inside of eat meat, which means that things like those paradoxes can still affirm inside of the world. Like things like contradictions, we can still get advantage off contradictions. Yeah, contradictions we don't get.
What was your answer to you only get one air shell?
The answer to we only get one air shell. Yeah, to which point?
What were your arguments?
Yeah, sure. So it's key because anything else is infinite use. In the line they say norming. We said stacks as not a die norm. And operating the Kunar, it's inevitable. You can make 1 and C theory and still do main, which answers it, and it's not brute forcing. Then you say strategy, no, 1 and C shells can also make the one area impossible, but you can just be strategic because you can do things like when an RBI or uplift.
add all of the 1AR theory stuff first, and then truth testing.
Wait, so when you say one-year theory stuff, do you mean like the shells or is the framing or
The overview is on top. Yeah.
So overview, sorry, repeat that.
So like my overview page on like paradigm stuff, all of the shells, then the truth testing stuff, and
whatever is that?
What?
Wait, sorry, this had last.
This has first.
Okay, this had overview, shells, retesting. Okay, gotcha.
Can you be really clear when you're like shifting in between every theory argument?
Yes.
Okay.
I will do that.
I'm good.
I'll read better.
Okay.
Extend the decide Federal Reserve rate cuts are down now on the top of the affirmative versus rate hikes causes massive nuclear war because it causes conflict and disconnects in central banks, which causes extinction. That's offense for us. The overview. Top level to everything on the theory debate. If you did not flow it because it was low-key incomprehensible, you should not be able to vote on it. Atkin and Curtis, I'm looking at you to use reasonability times you means it's impossible to fairly evaluate the theory debate starting from the G1R, which makes it impossible to contest. So one year gets 4 minutes to explode theory shells, which is exactly what they did, and then they get 3 minutes to collapse on one of them. This makes it functionally impossible. The easy solution is to give them just one shell. All of their arguments about resulting abuse over time makes it impossible because we cannot evaluate whether the negative was abuse or not. If they read multiple shells, if they read one shell, they get to collapse to just their their best abuse story, and then collapse only that abuse story and assume why that is uniquely key to solving norming. Norming, if you buy all their stuff out competing in terms of norming is good, then a race to the top of norming for one theory shell is better than the race to the top of norming for every theory shell, which means you should expect all of your theory shells on face because they do not get to pick one out of the two era. You do not get combo theory shells that you can go for, which is exactly what they're going to do in the two era, which makes it impossible for two sandbagging independently. They have quantification from theory debates and judge instruction code. No, they did not read specific warrants. What fairness is only key. Education is good, and you should use education as a modesty. I.e., every single argument has diminishing returns. When you race to the top of fairness, you're inevitably going to sacrifice some education, which means you should use reasonability to identify how much education is lost. We were having a fantastic econ debate in front of a full room of people where we could have econ lectures, but instead you chose to restart for the 1AR, which is massive substance abuse loss. So risk is almost zero abuse if we win any risk of defaults underneath the theory shells.
The theory shells, in order. First is condo.
Conditionality is good for succeed and X except the terms of the debate know the plan better than us. So multiple options turns the neck does not lose after 1AR. 2 experimentation, lack of condom means next never experiment with new arguments, results in failed debates for each time you brings the same position each round. 3 station thinking. Condom forces the 1AR to make time allocation decisions and to sort through more layers when deciding where to class. More condom increases the breadth of class by incentivizing multiple layers like a pig and very counterpoint disad in case the breadth that weighs that for portability debate exposes us more ideas that improve awareness of the world on clash first 2 and collapse solves numerically focus on the advocacy way against it. The apps already indexed against both stages of the advocacy 2 debates are long enough for anything one stretching the surface even without common proofs common gets best of both worlds with early breadth of data breaking depth. This does not solve first increase in center structures where asking and all the strategic value we counterpoint by having a flex to decide whether or not to violate the condition 2 and choice at the mercy of the 1AR, which goes all the benefits of condos as will take the risk 2 is arbitrary because the neg will choose certain conditions that kick the advocacy with no stable basis like putting defense on it. The next shell picks. Picks are good first testing. Picks are key to testing after multiple different angles. Otherwise, if I miss the one I see a loose picks all by ensuring I can co-opt on predictable elements. 2 predictable real world possibilities and then include the components and the bills all the time. Problem pros will include the parts of the plan. They would pass and said 3. Any student self-incurred chose the plan could prepare to defend every part of the one I see. Don't function as laziness and no abuse. Any and all forms of the living wage are bad as it is bad. 2. The pick you just need to write your app better. 2. With abuse inevitable. All kinds of picks since they include the tiny part of the plan like taking action, same action. 3. No abuse. Happens in perfectly fine. If you find the kind of thing you should have prepped for. 2. You should cross reasonability on every single page. Here,
The next shell.
the line stuff, there's no terminal impact to line, and cross-distance binding, which means that cross-distance flex record binding, which means if I did not list it as one of the things that I accent, then I never accented. They do not have a violation, which justifies the meaning, and strategy doesn't exist. You could I never said it, and you could write your shell, would have been fine, because that excuse showed the question was fine. The next thing must counter-interpret will defend the violation for must not insert evidence. This is not an argument that we read in the doc. We explained it in the analytic. It was just for reference for the card, so the judge could read it afterwards. It means this solves all of their offense because it does not make an explicit argument that goes on the flow independently. Counter-interpreted inserting evidence is good. It's your own evidence. You should be able to defend every single subject
your affirmative, otherwise it's impossible, so we have to read your own card back at you, which doubles for education and fairness standards. It means it's impossible for us to debate on that. On delineating text or yes and no a priori is first we need, I don't know what an a priori is, there's no reason we have to delineate whether it's an a priori or not, independent by reasons to affirm or negate already exist, and counter will defend the violation. First stress cube, no, stress cube is wrong. Stress cube wrongly makes it impossible because then the negative has infinitely specified, that kills fairness because it means the 1 and C is infinite specification without ever getting to contest the substance of the 1 and C, which crowds out substance and kills fairness because we can never contest any part of the affirmative spec solves contesting different arguments. No, it kills the point of conversation in terms of action because it means it's impossible for us to ever have delineated debates if we're always delineating whether we have a priori theory, K's, alts, vague alts, floating picks, etc., which is all the cases or everything that the 1 and C would have to specify, which takes away from the time cube and makes it impossible. Plus you didn't spec for the 1AR, so you also violate Fiscal. The truth testing. We'll concede truth testing, but that still allows the validity of utility because I was the only family that was read in the round, which means if we win, the data that is sufficient to outweigh, and they didn't send their out, so it's fine. First, the condo logic is wrong and assumes two antecedents, but there's no reason why, there's no reason. You can also flip the script, the negative, show that the negative, like whatever they said, I forgot, but like just change the word affirmative to negative. It means that the negative, if the negative wins, then the judge goes to negative. If the negative loses, the judge goes to negative. Either way, it solves both ways. It's impossible to prove otherwise. Independently, it's illogical. Both P and non-P cannot be true, and the judge cannot have both obligations to vote for the affirmative and negative. That would lead to a double win, which is sort of impossible. The contradictions for preparedness and natural law makes it impossible or hard to evaluate stuff. This was not an argument, it was two words, and in the 1AR between teacher hold the line on the blip. It just says there's contradictions, but contradictions are impossible. Basic logic tells us that both P and non-P cannot be true. The principle of explosion and large paradox are also wrong because they assume condo ideas of an if-then antecedent idea, but there was no if before the plan text, which means there's no antecedent for the plan, which means it's impossible for them to go and justify why the antecedent must be always true regardless of the if statement, because there's no if statement to begin with. Making up an if statement is impossible, and they didn't do that in the 1AC, which means it's not binding to the plan text. Plan text in a vacuum is good. It's the only contestable place that we can debate on. The trivialism all statements are true. First, it justifies this is an infinite IBI just by saying the Holocaust was good, which makes it impossible, and independently trivialism assumes assumptions that people can not pure true, and they assume an assumption that every truth factor must be based, and there must be a non-trivial entity. That is wrong. There's no reason there's a non-trivial entity that is necessarily always going to exist. Also, this is really stupid. If you don't understand it and you need the 2AR to understand it, you can't vote on this. That's entirely new.
Sorry, what's the last one on trivialism?
Trivialism, IBI, Holocaust, it assumes a condition where there's a non-trivial identity, and a trivial identity, that entity doesn't exist, and the affirmative is not an if-then statement, so you cannot get the then statement until it's true that condition.
What are the arguments versus counter logic?
It assumes an antecedent. The resolution is not an antecedent, it is a non-if statement. So then it's illogical, both can not be, can't be true. You can flip it everywhere you said after, you can say negative. Solves, which is a result rule.
Okay, cool. We're just gonna do true testing.
Okay.
Say it again.
True testing? Just is everyone good? Cool.
Consider the role of the basket has a true and false given the resolution, but it's a scheme of the concept here, and to find negative to prove true and negate, affirm to prove true and negate to prove false. Possibilism. Going for tribalism, the efficacy of true testing, which is that a priori is the number one thing that outweighs the functioning conceit of possibilism. We are going to explain every single argument super clearly in the 2 AR, so there's no possible way you can vote negative. First, that possibilism is true. First, that we use the moral theoretic account for necessity, which is that propositions are interpreted relative to models or possible words, which is that we can generate impossible worlds. The alternative to possibilism is necessitarianism, which requires necessary truths, which is to arbitrarily exclude the fact that we can generate worlds where no truth exists. Second, they have conceded that necessitarianism requires necessary truth, but possibilism is simpler because the general method for maintaining truth doesn't require a new set of truths. The process of understanding why truth exists and inherent truths all require more truths. That process is infinitely regressive, which is that possibilism is the only model that can resolve it. Now that we've proven the validity of possibilism, it means that it's game over. Because if possibilism is true, it means that we can conceive of a world of which tribalism is true, which means that it is true that in the world where tribalism is true, that tribalism is true everywhere, which means that there's interdependence. And we can, so let me clarify further. If we can prove that if we can make generate possible worlds in our head, if we prove tribalism in that one world, it means that in that world, the statement that this world is the same as this current world means that it is true, which is that this world is also one that is true. Now the limelight, the idea, they say that we prove the things like the Holocaust. No, the Holocaust being good right now might not be a moral truth, but it's a semantic truth, but it's a link differential. It's hard to prove semantic truth true, which still refers to the truth testing because it means when we don't, we look at semantic truth. There's no distinction of morality, and I don't think the last reason for why morality necessarily matters. Now the next one they say assumes you and are true. Yes, it defies logic, but we've proven that possible existence tribalism is true everywhere. So even if your logical arguments might make sense intuitively, logically, everything has to be true, which is that logic is self-fulfilling, but tribalism is the only one that is mandatory power. Independently, the framing issues that tribalism says everything is true, even if you have made arguments against tribalism will just prove those arguments true. Tribalism will prove those arguments true as well, which is that it is self-defeating. The only thing that can explain these are tribalism. Independently, all the tautologic stuff will prove it here. The tautologic answers do not apply to the question of if, but tribalism is just a question of tribalism is just a question of the role of God in general, which is the distinction. Independently, if that statement we do not need it because it's discussing the resolution. We're large now. They say assume the contribute to non-trivial identity. That's not the argument that we went for. We haven't went for the principle of sufficient reason. The argument that we went is that we can create a world where we imagine tribalism, which means that tribalism is true here, which means that non-trivial identities do not necessarily matter. We do not need to explicitly prove a non-trivial identity because it's works for epistemic monism, and it requires necessary truths, but possibilism is more simple, which is what we did in the overview in the first case, which answers their argument. Last one, if the result is that oftentimes they say that if it's negative, power related can say that truth testing means that the rules of negatives prove the falsity of the resolution, not the inverse of the resolution were true, which means that they prove why the resolution specifically is a false statement. Independently, presumption looks affirmative, side bias, presume affirmative, even if there are conflicting stances. It just means that there's no option around which, and